Please, I just need to find my way home. The words barely registered in the chaos of downtown Bristol on a Friday evening. Rain hammered the pavement, turning gutters into rushing streams that carried discarded coffee cups and broken umbrellas towards storm drains. The elderly woman stood outside Morrison's grocery, her thin cardigan soaked through, white hair plastered to her skull. A businessman in a wool coat swerved around her without breaking stride, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, the Hartwell portfolio, I need those numbers by Monday. Excuse me, sir, I'm terribly confused. He was already gone. The woman's hands trembled as she clutched a small handbag to her chest. Her eyes, sharp and blue despite the confusion clouding them, darted from face to face in the crowd. Everyone moved so fast. When had the world become so fast? A teenage girl with earbuds didn't even glance up as she passed within inches. An older couple actually stepped into the street to avoid her, the wife whispering something that made her husband shake his head. The woman felt invisible, like she'd become a ghost haunting a city that had forgotten she existed. Ma'am, you need to move along. The grocery store manager stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You're blocking the entrance. I'm trying to find Ashford Lane. My house. Not my problem. Move or I'm calling the police. The woman shuffled away, her sensible shoes squelching with each step. She couldn't remember leaving the house. Couldn't remember why she'd come downtown. The memories scattered like leaves every time she tried to grasp them. A black Mercedes sedan roared past, hitting a puddle at full speed. The wave of dirty water crashed over her, soaking her from chest to knees. She gasped, stumbling backward. The car didn't slow. Through the rain, through the indifferent river of humanity flowing around her, no one stopped. No one asked if she was all right. She might as well have been invisible. The woman made it to a bench outside the old Barclays building and collapsed onto the wetwood, no longer caring that the rain had soaked through every layer. Her whole body shook from cold, from exhaustion, from the creeping terror that she might never find her way home. That she might die right here, and no one would notice until someone complained about the smell. She began to cry. 3 blocks away, Aaliyah Johnson checked her phone for the 4th time in 5 minutes. 7:47 p.m. 3 more deliveries. Come on, come on. The Insati Eats app showed her next pickup at Chen's Golden Dragon, then 2 more drop-offs in the business district. If she hustled, she'd clear another 40 pounds before the dinner rush ended. 40 pounds meant the electric bill paid on time. Meant her little brother Jamal could keep his asthma medication stocked. Meant maybe, she could finally register for that college entrance exam she'd been putting off for 6 months. At 17, Aaliyah had learned that life didn't pause for dreams. Dreams were luxuries, like new trainers or a winter coat that actually kept out the cold. She made do with her brother's hand-me-down jacket, too big in the shoulders, too short in the sleeves, and trainers she'd reinforced with duct tape last month. Her bicycle was chained outside the restaurant. She grabbed the bag of steaming containers, verified the address, and pushed back into the rain. The business district was 8 minutes if she took the shortcut through the plaza. 6 if she ignored the traffic lights. She was halfway across Pemberton Square when she saw the old woman. At first, Aaliyah almost pedaled past. Almost. Her shift ended at 9, and she had 3 more. The woman's shoulders shook. Even from 15 feet away, even over the rain and traffic, Aaliyah could see she was crying. Not my problem. You can't save everyone. You've got deliveries. The rational voice in her head sounded exactly like her mother, who'd worked herself into an early grave trying to save everyone. Who'd died with 63 pence in her bank account and a heart too big for a world too cruel. Aaliyah looked at her phone. Looked at the crying woman. Looked at the dozens of people streaming past without a glance. Damn it. She pulled up to the bench and dropped the kickstand. Up close, the woman looked worse, soaked through, shivering, mascara running in black rivers down her pale cheeks. But her clothes, despite being drenched, looked expensive. Real wool. Quality stitching. Ma'am? Are you all right? The woman's head snapped up, eyes wide with something that looked like shock. Like she'd forgotten other humans could actually see her. I'm lost. I can't remember how to get home. Aaliyah glanced at her phone again. The customer was already messaging, "Where's my food? Been waiting 20 minutes. She silenced the notification and crouched beside the bench. Okay, it's okay. What's your address? Ashford Lane. Number 7. The house with the blue door and the garden. There used to be roses. My Thomas planted roses. The woman's voice cracked. I can't remember if they're still there. Ashford Lane. Aaliyah knew it. The old money neighborhood on the north side, where houses had names instead of numbers and gardens had gardeners. 20 minutes by bike. In the opposite direction of her deliveries. The app buzzed again. Another angry message. Ma'am, what's your name? Eleanor. Eleanor Hartwell. The name tickled something in Aaliyah's memory, but she couldn't place it. Probably heard it at school, or on the news, or it didn't matter. All right, Miss Eleanor. I'm Aaliyah. I'm going to help you get home, okay? Eleanor's blue eyes filled with fresh tears, but these looked different. Grateful. Disbelieving. You'll help me? Yeah, I'll help you. Aaliyah pulled off her oversized jacket and draped it around Eleanor's shoulders. The old woman was tiny underneath, bird-boned and fragile. How long had she been out here? How many hundreds of people had walked past? Can you ride on the back of my bike? There's a rack. Eleanor nodded, still staring at Aaliyah like she was seeing something miraculous. As Aaliyah helped her stand, her phone exploded with notifications. The customer canceling the order. Insati Eats docking her rating. Another delivery being reassigned. There went £40. There went the electric bill. But Eleanor's small, cold hand gripped hers with desperate strength, and Aaliyah couldn't bring herself to care. Let's get you home, Miss Eleanor. Neither of them noticed the black Mercedes sedan that had circled back, now idling at the corner. Or the man in the driver's seat, phone pressed to his ear, watching intently as Aaliyah helped Eleanor onto the bike rack. Sir, you need to see this. Someone's found her. The ride to Ashford Lane took 23 minutes. Aaliyah pedaled through streets that transformed block by block, cracked pavement giving way to smooth asphalt, boarded-up shops replaced by boutiques with French names, graffitied walls turning into manicured hedges. She'd delivered food to this neighborhood exactly twice before, both times leaving through the service entrances of buildings where the doormen watched her like she might steal the potted plants. Eleanor sat perched on the rear rack, one hand gripping Aaliyah's shoulder for balance, the other still clutching that handbag like it contained her entire life. She'd stopped shivering once they got moving, though Aaliyah's jacket swallowed her whole. Turn here, Eleanor said suddenly, her voice clearer than it had been. The street with the iron gates. Aaliyah turned onto a tree-lined avenue where the houses sat so far back from the road she could barely see them. Security cameras perched on stone pillars. Range Rovers and Jaguars gleamed in circular driveways. Which number, Miss Eleanor? 7. The one with Eleanor's breath caught. Oh, my roses are gone. The house sat behind a 12-foot privacy hedge, accessible through gates that probably cost more than Aaliyah's entire apartment building. But the gates stood open, and through them, Aaliyah could see a sprawling Georgian manor, all red brick and white columns, with wings extending in both directions. This is your home? For 43 years. Eleanor's voice had gone soft. Thomas and I moved here the summer we married. He said I needed a garden to match my spirit. She paused. He died 8 years ago. The roses died the following winter. I couldn't bear to replace them. Aaliyah walked the bike up the circular drive, taking in the immaculate lawn, the fountain in the center courtyard, the 6-car garage visible around the side. This wasn't just wealth. This was old wealth, the kind that appeared in period dramas and architecture magazines. The kind that made a 17-year-old delivery girl with duct-taped trainers feel very, very small. The front door burst open before they reached the steps. Mrs. Hartwell. Thank God. A man in his 50s rushed out, expensive suit slightly rumpled, phone still in his hand. His eyes swept over Eleanor with what looked like genuine relief before landing on Aaliyah with unmistakable suspicion. Where did you find her? Downtown, near Pemberton Square. Aaliyah helped Eleanor off the bike, steadying her as she found her feet. She was confused, couldn't remember how to get home. Of course she was confused. The man descended the steps, reaching for Eleanor's arm with proprietary familiarity. Mrs. Hartwell, you gave us all such a fright. How did you get all the way downtown? I don't remember, Vincent. Eleanor's clarity was fading again, her voice uncertain. I thought I needed. It's all right. Let's get you inside and warm. Vincent finally looked at Aaliyah properly, his expression calculating. Thank you for bringing her home. I'm Vincent Ashford, Mrs. Hartwell's estate attorney. I assume you'll want some compensation for your time. He reached for his wallet, and something hot and uncomfortable twisted in Aaliyah's stomach. I don't want money. I just wanted to make sure she got home safe. Vincent's eyebrows rose. How refreshingly noble. Nevertheless, Vincent, stop being tiresome. Eleanor's voice sharpened, cutting through her earlier confusion like sun through clouds. This young woman showed me more kindness in 20 minutes than this entire city showed me in 2 hours. She turned to Aaliyah, and her blue eyes were suddenly, startlingly clear. What did you say your name was? Aaliyah Johnson, ma'am. Aaliyah. Eleanor smiled, and it transformed her whole face. Would you come inside for tea? You're soaked through, and it's the least I can offer. Oh, I couldn't. I have to get back to work, my shift. Please. Eleanor's hand found Aaliyah's again, that same desperate grip from the bench. Just for a few minutes. I'd like to properly thank you. Aaliyah glanced at her phone. 8:34 p.m. Her rating had already tanked from the canceled delivery. Another hour wouldn't make much difference now. Just for a few minutes. Vincent's expression tightened, but he said nothing as Eleanor led Aaliyah through doors that probably cost more than a car, into an entrance hall with marble floors and a chandelier that threw rainbow prisms across cream-colored walls. Inside, the house felt like a museum. Oil paintings in gilded frames lined the hallway. Antique furniture sat at precise intervals, the kind Aaliyah had only seen behind velvet ropes. Her wet trainers squeaked on the marble, each sound making her wince. Don't worry about the floors, dear. Eleanor noticed her discomfort. They've survived worse than a little rain. A woman in her 40s appeared from a side door, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing what looked like a housekeeper's uniform. Her eyes went wide at the sight of Eleanor. Mrs. Hartwell. We've been searching everywhere. The police are on their way. Cancel them, Patricia. I'm fine. This young lady brought me home. Eleanor kept hold of Aaliyah's hand as she moved toward a sitting room. Would you bring tea for two, please? The Darjeeling, I think. Patricia's gaze swept over Aaliyah with the same suspicion Vincent had shown, lingering on the duct-taped trainers and borrowed jacket. Of course, ma'am. Should I call Dr. Chen? Just to be safe? I'm not having another examination, Patricia. I'm having tea with my guest. Vincent followed them into the sitting room, phone now pressed to his ear. Yes, she's home. Safe. A local girl found her downtown. Pause. I don't know yet. I'm handling it. The sitting room was smaller than the entrance hall, but somehow more overwhelming. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 2 walls. A bay window overlooked the garden where Eleanor's roses used to grow. Photographs covered the mantelpiece, a younger Eleanor with a tall man who must be Thomas, their arms around each other, both laughing. Eleanor in a ball gown shaking hands with someone who looked suspiciously like a former prime minister. Eleanor cutting a ribbon in front of a building. Aaliyah recognized the new children's hospital on Westbridge Avenue. You built the children's hospital, Aaliyah said, the pieces suddenly clicking together. Hartwell. The Hartwell Foundation. You're that Eleanor Hartwell. Eleanor settled into a wingback chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. I wondered when you'd remember. Most people recognize the name immediately. Aaliyah felt her face heat. I'm sorry, I should have. Don't apologize. Do you know how refreshing it is to meet someone who doesn't know who I am? Who helps because it's right, not because they're hoping for something in return. Vincent ended his call and leaned against the doorframe. Mrs. Hartwell, perhaps we should discuss this evening privately before. Before what, Vincent? Before I thank the only person who showed me basic human decency. Eleanor's voice sharpened again. I was lost, confused, soaked to the bone. Do you know how many people walked past me? Hundreds. Thousands. This child was the only one who stopped. With all due respect, we don't know anything about this girl. Her name is Aaliyah. About Aaliyah. We don't know her background, her connections, her motives. Her motive was kindness. Eleanor's hands trembled, but not from cold this time. From anger. She gave me her jacket, Vincent. She lost money from her job to bring me home. Those are not the actions of someone with ulterior motives. Patricia returned with a tea service. The china so delicate Aaliyah was afraid to touch it. She set it on the coffee table between Eleanor and Aaliyah, then withdrew without a word, though her disapproving expression spoke volumes. Eleanor poured with practiced grace despite her trembling hands. Milk? Sugar? Both, please. Aaliyah accepted the cup carefully, hyper-aware of Vincent's eyes on her, analyzing her every movement. How old are you, Aaliyah? 17. 18 in November. Still in school. Finished my A-levels last spring. I'm taking a gap year to save money before university. The lie came easily. She'd told it so many times it almost felt true. Better than admitting she couldn't afford to apply, that university was a dream for people with safety nets and savings accounts. Eleanor studied her over the rim of her teacup. What do you want to study? Social work. I want to. Aaliyah stopped herself. These people didn't care about her dreams. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Something in Eleanor's voice made Aaliyah look up. The old woman's blue eyes held an intensity that cut through all the confusion from earlier, sharp and assessing and deeply intelligent. I want to help people, Aaliyah said quietly. People who fall through the cracks. People who get ignored because they're not convenient or profitable or easy. People like, she stopped again. People like me tonight? Eleanor finished. Invisible. Disposable. You're not disposable. No. But tonight I learned what it feels like to be treated as if I am. Eleanor set down her cup, and when she looked at Aaliyah again, something had shifted in her expression. A decision made. Tell me, Aaliyah. Do you believe in fate? Vincent straightened. Mrs. Hartwell. I'm asking Aaliyah. Aaliyah thought about her mother, dead at 42 from a heart that gave out from exhaustion and stress. About her father, who'd left when she was 3 and never looked back. About Jamal's asthma attacks at 3 a.m. and choosing between medication and electricity. I believe we make our own fate, she said carefully. Through the choices we make. Eleanor smiled, and it was both sad and satisfied. You chose to help me tonight. That choice is about to change both our lives. I don't understand. You will. Eleanor glanced at Vincent. Call Harrison Whitmore. Tell him I need the papers drawn up by Monday morning. Vincent's face went white. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Mrs. Hartwell, you've had a traumatic evening. You're confused, disoriented. Let's discuss this tomorrow when you've rested. I am not confused. Eleanor's voice cracked like a whip. Tonight I walked through my own city, a city my family helped build, and I was treated like garbage. Stepped over. Splashed with filth. Chased away like vermin. This child, this stranger, was the only person who saw me as human. She turned back to Aaliyah. Do you know what that teaches you? About the world? About people. Aaliyah's throat tightened. That kindness is rare. That kindness is revolutionary. Eleanor's hands found Aaliyah's across the coffee table. And it should be rewarded. Protected. Empowered to do more. I don't need a reward for doing the right thing. What if I told you that you could help hundreds of people like me? Thousands? People who get ignored, forgotten, thrown away by a society that values profit over humanity. I'd say that sounds impossible for someone like me. What if it wasn't? Vincent stepped forward. Mrs. Hartwell, please. Think about what you're doing. We've discussed your succession planning extensively. The foundation board, the trust structures, the family considerations. I have no family, Vincent. Thomas and I never had children. My sister died 20 years ago. I'm the last of the Hartwells. Eleanor's grip on Aaliyah's hands tightened. Until now. The room went very, very quiet. Aaliyah's heart hammered against her ribs. Miss Eleanor. Go home, Aaliyah. Get some rest. On Monday morning, you're going to receive a visit from some very serious people in very expensive suits. Eleanor smiled. And your life is going to change forever. I don't understand. You will. Now go, before Vincent has an aneurysm. In a daze, Aaliyah found herself back at the front door, her jacket returned, a business card pressed into her hand with a phone number written on the back in shaky but elegant script. Call me if you need anything. H. The rain had stopped. Stars struggled through the city's light pollution. Aaliyah's bicycle waited where she'd left it, looking absurdly out of place against the backdrop of marble and money. As she pedaled away, she glanced back once. Eleanor stood in the doorway, backlit by the chandelier waving. Vincent stood behind her, phone to his ear, his expression dark with something that looked very much like fury. The weekend passed in a blur of confusion and denial. Aaliyah told herself it was a fluke. A nice old lady being generous in the moment, promising things she'd forget by morning. Rich people said stuff like that all the time, didn't they? Grand gestures that evaporated in daylight? Saturday morning, she worked a double shift at the cafe on Milton Street, pulling espressos and wiping tables while her mind replayed Eleanor's words on an endless loop. Your life is going to change forever. Sunday, she helped Jamal with his maths homework and tried not to check her phone every 5 minutes. No calls came. No expensive suits appeared. See? A fluke. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Aaliyah woke at 6 to her phone buzzing with a text from her landlord. Rent was due Friday. Payment plan expired. Need full amount by Wednesday or starting eviction proceedings. £3,200. She had 417 in her account. Aaliyah stared at the ceiling of the bedroom she shared with Jamal, him in the actual bed, her on a mattress on the floor, and did the math she'd done 100 times before. It never came out differently. There was no path from 417 to 3,200 by Wednesday. Laya. Jamal's voice was thick with sleep. You okay? Fine. Go back to sleep. You're doing that thing where you forget to breathe. 12 years old and too observant for his own good. Aaliyah forced herself to inhale. Just thinking. Don't worry about it. Is it the rent again? I said don't worry about it. She got up, splashed water on her face in the bathroom they shared with 3 other families, and was pulling on her cafe uniform when someone knocked on the apartment door. Not the usual bang 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 of neighbors or the landlord. A professional knock. Measured. Patient. Aaliyah opened the door to find 3 people in suits standing in the hallway that smelled perpetually of cabbage and mildew. 2 men, 1 woman, all carrying leather briefcases that probably cost more than Aaliyah's entire wardrobe. The woman stepped forward, extending her hand. Aaliyah Johnson? Yes. My name is Catherine Winters. I'm the managing partner at Whitmore, Winters and Associates. We represent the Hartwell estate. May we come in? 5 minutes later, Aaliyah sat on the lumpy sofa while three attorneys perched on mismatched chairs, their expensive suits looking deeply wrong against the peeling wallpaper and water-stained ceiling. Jamal had retreated to the bedroom but kept peeking through the crack in the door. Catherine Winters opened her briefcase and withdrew a folder thick with documents. Miss Johnson, what I'm about to tell you will sound extraordinary. I need you to understand that this is completely legitimate and legally binding. Okay. Aaliyah's voice came out smaller than she intended. Eleanor Hartwell has named you as the primary beneficiary of the Hartwell Trust, effective immediately. This includes controlling interest in Hartwell Industries, full ownership of 7 residential properties including the Ashford Lane estate, and liquid assets totaling approximately £4.3 billion. The words landed like physical objects. Aaliyah heard them, processed the individual syllables, but they refused to form coherent meaning. I'm sorry, what? One of the men, Harrison Whitmore, according to the card he'd placed on the coffee table, leaned forward. Mrs. Hartwell has made you her heir. You now control one of the largest private fortunes in the United Kingdom. Aaliyah laughed. She couldn't help it. That's insane. I met her 3 days ago. For 20 minutes. This is a mistake. It's not a mistake. Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. Mrs. Hartwell was quite clear about her intentions. She's been planning this since Friday night. We've spent the entire weekend drawing up the paperwork. But I'm nobody. I deliver food and make coffee. I live in a 1-bedroom flat with mold in the bathroom. You can't just give somebody like me billions of pounds. Mrs. Hartwell can do exactly that. And she has. Catherine slid a document across the coffee table. This is the trust agreement. It outlines the terms and conditions of your inheritance. Aaliyah stared at the paper without touching it, like it might burn her. What conditions? You must complete your education, university degree minimum. You'll work directly with the Hartwell Foundation, learning the charitable operations. You'll have access to a monthly stipend of £50,000 for personal expenses, with the bulk of the assets held in trust until you turn 25. At that point, you gain full control. £50,000 a month? Aaliyah's voice cracked. That's not a stipend, that's more money than I've seen in my entire life. It's a fraction of the interest the principal generates daily. The third attorney, she'd already forgotten his name, opened his own briefcase. We've also been authorized to provide immediate relief for any pressing financial concerns. Mrs. Hartwell was quite specific that you shouldn't suffer stress during this transition. He withdrew a checkbook. An actual checkbook, the kind Aaliyah had only seen in old films. Is there anything you need? Outstanding debts, medical expenses, housing issues. Aaliyah thought about the eviction notice. About Jamal's asthma medication that cost £60 every 2 weeks. About the university applications she couldn't afford to submit. This is insane, she whispered. This doesn't happen to people like me. Yet it is happening. Catherine's expression softened. I understand this is overwhelming. But Miss Johnson, Aaliyah, you need to understand something. Mrs. Hartwell isn't doing this on a whim. She's one of the shrewdest people I've ever met. She saw something in you. Something she wants to protect and cultivate. She saw me being a decent human being. That shouldn't be worth billions of pounds. In a world where hundreds of people walked past her without stopping, apparently it is. The bedroom door creaked. Jamal slipped out, his asthma inhaler clutched in one hand. Laya? What's happening? Aaliyah opened her mouth, but no words came. How did you explain this to a 12-year-old when you couldn't explain it to yourself? Catherine smiled at Jamal. Your sister did something very kind for someone who needed help. Now that person is saying thank you in a very big way. How big? Big enough that you'll never have to worry about rent again, one of the attorneys said. Jamal's eyes went huge. He looked at Aaliyah. For real? I don't know. Aaliyah pressed her palms against her eyes. I don't know what's real right now. I can arrange for a vehicle to take you to the Ashford Lane estate, Catherine offered. Mrs. Hartwell would like to see you this afternoon. She can explain her reasoning in person. I have a shift at the cafe at 9. Miss Johnson, you will never have to work at a cafe again. Unless you choose to. The words hung in the air, impossible and terrifying and intoxicating all at once. Aaliyah looked at Jamal, at his inhaler, at the water stain on the ceiling that landlord had promised to fix for 8 months. She looked at the attorneys with their leather briefcases and their patient expressions and their checkbook that could make every problem she'd ever had simply disappear. If I sign this, she said slowly, what happens? Your life changes, Catherine said simply. Dramatically. Irreversibly. You'll have resources and responsibilities beyond what most people experience in a lifetime. You'll also have enemies, people who think you don't deserve this, who'll want to take it from you, who'll question your every decision. And if I don't sign it? Catherine's expression didn't change. Then you go to work at the cafe. You struggle to make rent. You watch your brother ration his medication. And Mrs. Hartwell's fortune goes to a distant cousin in Southampton who hasn't spoken to her in 30 years and only remembers she exists when he needs money. That's not fair. Life rarely is. But right now, you have a choice that most people never get. The question is, are you brave enough to take it? Aaliyah's hands trembled as she reached for the document. The paper felt ordinary. Normal weight, normal texture. Like it couldn't possibly contain the power to rewrite reality. But her mother's voice echoed in her memory. When someone offers you a life raft, baby girl, you don't ask if you deserve it. You climb aboard and help pull up everyone else who's drowning. What do I need to sign? 2 hours later, Aaliyah sat in the back of a Mercedes sedan, not driving it, sitting in it, while someone else drove, watching Bristol transform around her for the second time in 3 days. The check for £3,500 sat in her pocket, already deposited via an app the attorneys had shown her. The rent was paid. Jamal's medication was ordered. The eviction notice was void. And she was on her way back to Ashford Lane, to the house with missing roses and a chandelier that threw rainbows, to see the woman who'd decided a 17-year-old nobody deserved to inherit the earth. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Whitney. Where are you? Mr. Chin is losing his mind. You missed your shift. He's threatening to fire you. Aaliyah stared at the message. 12 hours ago, getting fired from the cafe would have been catastrophic. Now it was irrelevant. The word felt strange even thinking it. She typed. Something came up. Family emergency. I'll explain later. How did you explain this? How did you tell someone that a random act of kindness had transformed you into something that didn't quite feel real yet? The Mercedes turned onto the tree-lined avenue. The gates of number 7 stood open, but this time there were other cars in the circular drive. Expensive cars. And people, men and women in business attire, clustered in small groups, all turning to watch as the Mercedes pulled up. Catherine appeared at the car door before the driver could open it. There's been a complication. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. She changed her mind. No, but the news has leaked. Somehow the press found out about the inheritance. It's already on the financial networks. Catherine's expression was grim. And Vincent Ashford has filed a legal challenge claiming Mrs. Hartwell was mentally incompetent when she signed the documents. Can he do that? He can try. He won't succeed. We have medical evaluations from 3 independent doctors confirming her competency. But he can make things messy. Catherine gestured toward the house. Mrs. Hartwell is inside. She wants to see you before things get worse. Worse than this. Catherine's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression hardened. The first news vans just arrived at the end of the street. Security is keeping them back, but... She looked at Aaliyah. Are you ready for this? Because once you walk through that door, there's no going back to normal. The world is about to know your name. Through the mansion's windows, Aaliyah could see Eleanor standing in the entrance hall, backlit by that chandelier. Even from a distance, she looked smaller than Aaliyah remembered. Frilier. Like Friday's confusion had returned and settled into her bones. But when their eyes met through the glass, Eleanor smiled. And Aaliyah made her choice. She got out of the car and walked toward the door, toward the cameras that would arrive any moment, toward the life that didn't quite feel real yet, toward the point of no return. The entrance hall felt different this time. Maybe it was the tension crackling through the air like static electricity. Maybe it was the dozen strangers in expensive suits, their conversations stopping mid-sentence when Aaliyah walked in. Or maybe it was Eleanor herself, who'd somehow diminished in the 3 days since Aaliyah last saw her, shoulders curved inward, hands trembling worse than before. Aaliyah. Eleanor's voice carried across the marble. Thank God you came. Before Aaliyah could respond, a man stepped between them. Mid-30s, tall, with the kind of jawline that belonged in cologne advertisements. His suit probably cost more than the Mercedes that had brought her here. Miss Johnson, I'm Graham Hartwell, Eleanor's nephew. Aaliyah blinked. I thought she said she had no family. Second cousin, technically. Twice removed. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The family tree gets complicated when you go back far enough. But blood is blood, wouldn't you say? Graham arrived this morning, Eleanor said, her voice tight. Along with several other relatives I haven't seen in years. Funny how family remembers you exist when money's involved. Graham's smile hardened. That's unfair, Eleanor. We've been concerned about you for months. The confusion, the memory lapses. I had one episode. One. And it taught me exactly who gives a damn about me when I'm not useful. Eleanor moved toward Aaliyah, each step careful, deliberate. Which is why I'm giving everything to someone who helped me when I had nothing to offer in return. You're giving away the family legacy to a stranger. A woman emerged from the sitting room, mid-50s, dripping in jewelry that looked antique. I'm Victoria Pemberton, née Hartwell, Eleanor's first cousin. This is insane, Eleanor. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. You met this girl 3 days ago. Victoria's voice rose. 3 days, and you're handing her a £4 billion empire? What did she do, trick you? Manipulate you while you were confused? Heat flashed through Aaliyah's chest. I didn't trick anyone. I just helped her get home. How convenient that helping her came with such a generous reward. Victoria's gaze raked over Aaliyah like she was assessing livestock. Tell me, dear, how long have you been planning this? Did you know who she was before you helped her? I didn't even recognize her name until... Ladies. A new voice cut through the rising argument. A man in his 60s descended the main staircase, his presence commanding immediate silence. Silver hair, sharp eyes, and a bearing that suggested he was used to being obeyed. Let's all take a breath before this becomes uglier than it already is. Eleanor's expression shifted, something between relief and wariness. Harrison. When did you arrive? 20 minutes ago. Catherine called me. Harrison Whitmore, the senior partner whose name was on the firm, reached the bottom of the stairs and surveyed the crowded entrance hall with obvious distaste. I see the vultures have already circled. How dare you, Victoria sputtered. I dare because I've known Eleanor for 30 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times any of you have visited. Harrison's voice was cold steel. Now, unless someone has a legitimate legal challenge and Vincent's competency claim will be dismissed by tomorrow, I suggest you all leave before I have security escort you out. We have every right to be here, Graham said. This is family business. This is Eleanor's business. And she's made her decision. Harrison turned to Aaliyah. Miss Johnson, shall we discuss the details somewhere more private? The study was quieter, insulated from the chaos downstairs by thick oak doors and walls lined with books. Eleanor sank into a leather chair that seemed to swallow her whole. Harrison poured brandy from a crystal decanter without asking if anyone wanted it. Catherine stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, speaking in clipped tones. I don't care what the Daily Mail is offering. No statements, no photos, no comment. Yes, I'm aware they're calling her the billion-pound Cinderella. That's exactly why we're not engaging. Aaliyah felt sick. It's already on the news? Financial Times broke it an hour ago, Harrison said, handing Eleanor a glass. Someone leaked the trust documents. We're investigating, but the damage is done. By tonight, your face will be on every news channel in the country. I don't want to be on the news. I don't want any of this. Too late. Eleanor's voice was quiet but firm. The moment I signed those papers, you became a public figure. I'm sorry, Aaliyah. I should have warned you, prepared you better. But I was afraid if I waited, if I gave myself time to talk myself out of it. She trailed off, staring into her brandy. Out of what? Out of finally doing something that matters. Eleanor looked up, and her eyes held a fierceness that cut through the frailty. I've spent 43 years managing this fortune, Aaliyah. 43 years of board meetings and charity galas and people kissing up to me because of my bank balance. Do you know how many of them would have helped me on Friday night if they'd seen me on that bench? Eleanor. None of them. Not one. They'd have called someone to deal with me. Sent an assistant. Maybe taken a photo to post on social media with some caption about how tragic it is to see the elderly suffering. Her hands tightened on the glass. You gave me your jacket. You lost money to help me. You saw a confused old woman and treated her like a human being worth protecting. That doesn't mean I deserve billions of pounds. It means you deserve them more than anyone else I can think of. Catherine ended her call and turned from the window. We need to address the immediate threats. Vincent's competency challenge is just noise. We have documentation proving Eleanor was evaluated by 3 separate psychiatrists, all of whom confirmed she's of sound mind. But Graham and Victoria are a different problem. What can they do? Aaliyah asked. They're claiming undue influence, that you manipulated Eleanor during a vulnerable moment. It won't hold up legally, but it'll drag out in court for months. Maybe years. And the media will eat it up. There's also the Hartwell Industries board to consider, Harrison added. Eleanor controls 60% of the voting shares, which means you now control them. But the board members are, let's say they're not thrilled about a 17-year-old becoming their majority shareholder. Aaliyah's head spun. I don't know anything about running a company. You'll learn. You'll have advisors, consultants, an entire team. I don't want to run a company. I want to help people, do social work, make a difference in. She stopped. This is insane. All of this is insane. Eleanor set down her brandy and reached across the desk, her small hand finding Aaliyah's. I know it's overwhelming. But Aaliyah, think about what you could do with these resources. The foundation supports 12 hospitals, 37 schools, housing programs across 6 cities. You wanted to help people who fall through the cracks? Now you can help thousands of them. By becoming someone I'm not. By pretending I belong in rooms with people like that Graham person who looks at me like I'm dirt on his shoes. Then prove him wrong. Eleanor's grip tightened. Show them all what someone with actual compassion can do with power. A knock interrupted them. Patricia, the housekeeper, entered without waiting for permission. Mrs. Hartwell, there's someone here to see Miss Johnson. A Detective Inspector Morris from Bristol CID. The room went very still. Why, Aaliyah said slowly, would a detective want to see me? Harrison and Catherine exchanged looks. Catherine pulled out her phone, scrolling quickly. Her expression darkened. There's been a complaint filed. Anonymous tip claiming you researched Eleanor's routine, deliberately positioned yourself to find her, and orchestrated the entire encounter to gain access to her fortune. That's a lie. Aaliyah shot to her feet. I was making deliveries, I saw her crying, I helped her. We know. But someone's trying to paint a different picture. Harrison's voice was grim. They're claiming you targeted her specifically. How would I even know she'd be there? How would I know she'd have an episode? This is ridiculous. It's also effective. Catherine's fingers flew across her phone. The story's already on social media. Hashtag £1 billion scam is trending. People are calling you a con artist. Aaliyah's legs felt weak. She sank back into her chair. This morning I was worried about rent. Now I'm being accused of fraud on national television. Not just fraud. Catherine's face was pale. There are accusations about your mother. Her death. Someone's implying you have a history of profiting from vulnerable people. The world tilted. Aaliyah's mother had died 2 years ago, heart attack at work, collapsed in the hospital where she'd been a cleaner for 20 years. They'd had nothing. Not even enough for a proper funeral. Aaliyah had worked 3 jobs to pay for the cremation. How dare they? Her voice came out strangled. How dare they bring her into this? I'll handle the detective, Harrison said. Eleanor, you'll need to give a formal statement supporting Aaliyah. Catherine, start building our counter-narrative. No. Eleanor's voice cut through the planning. No more defense. We go on offense. Eleanor, I don't think. I'm calling a press conference. Tonight. I'll tell the truth about Friday night, about the people who ignored me, about Aaliyah's kindness. Let them try to spin that. A press conference will create a media frenzy, Catherine warned. Good. Let them look me in the eye and call me incompetent. Let them explain why hundreds of people walked past me and a teenage girl was the only one who stopped. Eleanor's jaw set in a line Aaliyah was beginning to recognize. The fragile old woman dissolved, replaced by the steel magnolia who'd built an empire. Harrison, set it up for 7 p.m. Main ballroom. Every outlet that wants an invitation gets one. Eleanor. This child saved my life, and now she's being crucified for it. I won't allow it. The hours until 7 p.m. blurred together. Aaliyah gave her statement to Detective Inspector Morris, a tired-looking woman in her 40s who seemed deeply uncomfortable with the whole situation. Yes, she'd helped Eleanor home. No, she hadn't known who she was. No, she hadn't asked for anything in return. For the record, Morris said as she closed her notebook, I think this complaint is bollocks. But I had to follow up. Someone with influence pushed this through channels fast. Who filed it? Anonymous. But it came with detailed information about your financial situation, your work history, your family. Morris's expression was sympathetic. Someone's done their homework on you, love. Watch your back. Jamal arrived mid-afternoon, escorted by security because reporters had found their apartment building. His eyes were huge as he took in the mansion. Leia, there are cameras outside our building. People asking questions about Mom, about you, about what's happening. She pulled him into a hug, suddenly grateful for something solid and real and familiar. I'm figuring it out. Are you really rich now? I don't know what I am. At 6 p.m., a stylist arrived, sent by Catherine, who took one look at Aaliyah's cafe uniform and declared it unacceptable for a press conference. The woman descended with makeup and hair tools and a rack of dresses that probably cost more than Aaliyah's annual income. I can't wear this, Aaliyah protested, staring at the elegant navy sheath dress. This isn't me. Tonight it needs to be. Eleanor appeared in the doorway of the guest room they'd commandeered. She'd changed, too, into a dove-gray suit that made her look every inch the billionaire matriarch. They're going to judge you no matter what you wear. Might as well give them less ammunition. I feel like a fraud. You're not a fraud. You're a young woman who helped someone in need, and now you're being punished for it. Eleanor crossed the room, her movements steadier than they'd been all day. Aaliyah, I need you to understand something. Those people downstairs, Graham, Victoria, Vincent, they're not angry because you don't deserve this. They're angry because they know you do. Because they know they would have walked right past me. Then why not give them the money? Make all this go away. Because money without conscience is just greed. And I've spent too long watching greed destroy everything it touches. Eleanor's hands settled on Aaliyah's shoulders. I chose you because you made an impossible choice. You sacrificed your own welfare to help someone you'd never met. That's not common. That's rare. And it's exactly the quality this fortune needs protecting it. A knock. Catherine stuck her head in. 5 minutes. The ballroom's packed. Every major outlet in the UK plus international correspondence. BBC is carrying it live. Aaliyah's stomach churned. I think I'm going to be sick. Deep breaths. You've got this. Catherine paused. For what it's worth, I've been practicing law for 20 years. I've never seen Eleanor this certain about anything. The ballroom was a sea of cameras and microphones. Aaliyah stood in the wings with Jamal, watching Eleanor approach the podium with Harrison on one side and Catherine on the other. Flash bulbs erupted like lightning. Questions shouted over each other. Mrs. Hartwell, is it true you're giving your fortune to a teenager? Did you know her before Friday? Are you being coerced? Eleanor raised one hand, and somehow, despite her small stature, despite her age, the room quieted. Good evening. I'll make a brief statement, and then I'll take questions. Her voice was clear, steady, amplified by microphones. On Friday evening, I experienced a moment of confusion while downtown. I became disoriented, lost, and frightened. For more than 2 hours, I wandered the streets of Bristol asking for help. Do you know how many people stopped to assist me? Silence. 1. A 17-year-old girl who was working her second job of the day, who gave me her jacket, who lost income to ensure I got home safely. Her name is Aaliyah Johnson, and she had no idea who I was or what I was worth. She helped me because it was the right thing to do. The cameras swiveled, trying to find Aaliyah in the crowd. I have been blessed with tremendous wealth in my lifetime. My late husband and I built Hartwell Industries into what it is today, and I've spent decades managing that legacy. But Friday night taught me something I should have learned long ago, that wealth means nothing without humanity. That all our money and power and influence are worthless if we can't see the person suffering right in front of us. Eleanor paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried absolute conviction. Aaliyah Johnson demonstrated the exact quality I want protecting this fortune, the ability to see human beings instead of transactions, the willingness to sacrifice for others, the courage to do what's right even when it costs you something. Those are the values my husband and I tried to build this company on. And I can think of no better guardian for that legacy than someone who embodies them completely. The questions erupted again, but Eleanor raised her hand once more. I am of sound mind. I have been evaluated by multiple medical professionals who confirm this. My decision is final, legal, and exactly what I want. And anyone who suggests otherwise is invited to look me in the eye and call me incompetent. She locked eyes with the camera, her blue gaze fierce and unflinching. Try me. The press conference should have ended it. Eleanor's passionate defense, broadcast live across the country, should have silenced the critics. The medical documentation should have buried Vincent's competency challenge. The truth should have been enough. But truth, Aaliyah was learning, mattered less than narrative. By Tuesday morning, the headlines had shifted. Elderly heiress or master manipulator? The question Britain is asking. Sources close to Hartwell family question teens' motives. Exclusive. Aaliyah Johnson's troubled past, mother's mysterious death raises questions. Aaliyah sat in Eleanor's study, staring at her phone screen until the words blurred together. They'd dug up everything. Her mother's employment records, showing 3 jobs in the months before she died. Aaliyah's spotty school attendance during that time. The debt collectors who'd called for 6 months after the funeral. They'd even found the social services report from when Aaliyah was 12, the one filed after a teacher noticed bruises on her arms. Never mind that those bruises came from catching Jamal when he fell off the climbing frame. Never mind that the investigation closed within a week with no findings. The internet didn't care about never mind. Stop reading that poison. Eleanor appeared with tea, setting a cup beside Aaliyah with trembling hands. She'd aged another decade since the press conference. The effort of projecting strength had cost her. They're saying I killed my mother for insurance money. We didn't even have life insurance. Aaliyah's voice cracked. She died with £17 in her account and debt collectors already circling. I worked 3 jobs just to pay for her cremation, and they're making it sound like I profited from her death. People believe what they want to believe. Then why are we fighting this? Just give the money to Graham or Victoria or whoever actually wants it. Let me go back to what? You think they'll let you disappear now? Eleanor sank into the chair across from her, moving like every joint hurt. The moment you walk away, you confirm every ugly thing they're saying. You become the con artist who got caught. Is that what you want? I want my life back. That life is gone, Aaliyah. It was gone the moment you took my hand. Eleanor's expression was unbearably sad. I'm sorry. I truly am. I thought I could give you opportunity without this ugliness. I was naive. A knock interrupted them. Catherine entered, her usual composure cracked around the edges. We have a problem. Another one? Aaliyah laughed bitterly. Hartwell Industries Board has called an emergency meeting for Thursday. They're voting on whether to accept you as majority shareholder or trigger the corporate restructuring clause that would dilute your shares. Eleanor's teacup rattled in its saucer. They can't do that. They can if they prove you're mentally unfit to make shareholder decisions. Vincent's not just challenging the trust anymore, he's going after your capacity to manage your own assets. And he's got 3 board members ready to testify that you've been showing signs of dementia for months. That's a lie. Is it? Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. Eleanor, you got lost downtown. You didn't recognize your own neighborhood. The medical evaluations show early-stage cognitive decline, which doesn't make me incompetent. No, but it gives them ammunition. Catherine turned to Aaliyah. There's more. Someone leaked your sealed juvenile records. Aaliyah's blood went cold. Those were expunged. The judge said. Someone with access leaked them anyway. The shoplifting arrest when you were 15. I took food because Jamal hadn't eaten in 2 days. I know, but the headlines won't explain that. They'll just report that you have a criminal record involving theft. Catherine's expression was miserable. I'm sorry, Aaliyah. Someone is systematically destroying your credibility, and they're doing it with information that should have been impossible to access. Eleanor's hands had gone white-knuckled on her teacup. Who? We're investigating, but it's sophisticated. Legal channels, sealed documents, information that requires high-level access to obtain. Catherine pulled out her tablet. There's something else. Your brother Jamal, someone's been asking questions at his school. About his health, his medications, your fitness as a guardian. The room tilted. No, they can't. Jamal has nothing to do with this. They're building a case that you're an unfit guardian. That sudden wealth has made you neglectful. That he'd be better off in foster care while you adjust to your new circumstances. Aaliyah shot to her feet. Where is he? Safe. Harrison's security team picked him up from school as a precaution. He's upstairs with. Aaliyah was already running. She found Jamal in one of the guest bedrooms, sitting on a bed that could fit 4 people, looking small and lost and terrified. The security guard at the door stepped aside as Aaliyah burst in. Laya. Jamal's voice was tiny. What's happening? The men at school, they were asking Mr. Patterson about you. She pulled him into a hug, feeling his thin shoulders shake. It's okay. You're safe. I won't let anyone take you. They said you might not be able to take care of me anymore. That I might have to go somewhere else. That's not happening. Do you hear me? I don't care what they say or do. You're my brother and you're staying with me. But what if they make you? What if the court says? Then we'll run. We'll disappear. I'll give back every penny if that's what it takes. You can't run from this. Harrison's voice came from the doorway. He looked older than he had that morning, the weight of whatever he'd learned pressing down on him. Aaliyah, we need to talk. Privately. I'm not leaving Jamal. Patricia will stay with him. Please. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. She kissed the top of Jamal's head. I'll be right back. I promise. Patricia appeared with hot chocolate and biscuits, already chatting to Jamal about the library downstairs and its collection of adventure books. Aaliyah followed Harrison back to the study, where Eleanor and Catherine waited with faces like funeral attendees. Tell me. Aaliyah's voice came out flat. Whatever it is, just tell me. Harrison sat heavily behind Eleanor's desk. We've identified the source of the leaks. The person with access to sealed records, juvenile files, medical information, corporate documents. Who? Vincent Ashford has been working with someone inside the Bristol CID. Someone with access to restricted databases and enough technical knowledge to cover their tracks. Harrison paused. But Vincent isn't the architect. He's the attorney, the legal face. Someone else is funding this, orchestrating it. Who? Aaliyah repeated. Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. Graham. Your nephew. Second cousin. But yes. Eleanor's hands trembled worse than ever. I should have seen it. He's been positioning himself as my heir for 5 years. Visiting monthly, joining the foundation board, making connections with Hartwell Industries executives. He thought he was next in line. Until I showed up. Until you showed up and destroyed his entire plan. Harrison opened a folder, spreading documents across the desk. Graham Hartwell is £60 million in debt. Business ventures that collapsed, investments that failed, a lifestyle he couldn't actually afford. He's been living off expectations, borrowing against an inheritance he assumed was coming. And now it's not, Catherine added. Every loan he took, every promise he made, every debt he incurred, all based on the assumption that Eleanor's fortune would eventually be his. Aaliyah stared at the documents. Numbers with too many zeros. Legal notices. Threat letters from creditors. He's desperate. He's destroyed. And desperate people do desperate things. Harrison's expression was grim. We traced the payments to Vincent, to the person inside CID, to the private investigators digging into your past. It all comes back to Graham. He's spent nearly £2 million in the last 4 days trying to dismantle your credibility. £2 million he doesn't have, Eleanor said quietly. Which means he's borrowed more. Dug himself deeper. Betting everything on destroying you so the inheritance reverts to him. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. The leaked documents. The criminal record. The questions about Jamal. The coordinated media assault. He's going to destroy me, Aaliyah said. And when I collapse under the pressure, when I give it all back just to make it stop, he wins. Yes. What if we expose him? Show everyone what he's doing. We can't prove it. Not yet. Harrison's voice was heavy. The money trail is deliberately complicated. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, layers of legal separation. Even if we had proof, Graham would claim he was acting to protect Eleanor from a predator. He'd paint himself as the concerned family member trying to save an elderly woman from exploitation. So we do nothing? Aaliyah's voice rose. We just let him destroy my reputation, threaten my brother, drag my dead mother's name through the mud? We build our own case. Carefully. Methodically. We don't have time for carefully. Aaliyah slammed her hand on the desk. That board meeting is Thursday. 48 hours. If they vote to restructure, Eleanor loses control of her own company, and Graham steps in as the responsible family alternative. Right? The silence confirmed it. There's one other option. Eleanor's voice was soft. We could settle. Offer Graham a significant portion of the estate in exchange for backing down. Enough to clear his debts and set him up comfortably. You want to pay off the person trying to destroy me? I want to protect you. If we give him what he wants, then he wins. And everyone who's calling me a fraud is proven right. Aaliyah's hands clenched into fists. No, absolutely not. Aaliyah, be reasonable. I spent my whole life being reasonable. Being quiet, being invisible, Not making waves because people like me don't get to make waves. The words erupted from somewhere deep and raw. My mother died being reasonable, working herself to death for people who didn't even remember her name when she collapsed. And you want me to just hand over billions of pounds to someone who's been attacking my 12-year-old brother? Eleanor flinched. I want you to survive this. I don't want to survive. I want to win. You can't win against people like Graham. They have too many resources, too many connections. They had those things on Friday night too. Didn't stop hundreds of them from walking right past you. Aaliyah met Eleanor's eyes. You told me you chose me because I made the impossible choice. Because I sacrificed for someone else. But now you want me to take the easy way out. This isn't about easy or hard. This is about reality. The reality is that if I give Graham anything, every person who ever ignored someone in need gets to feel justified. Every kid like me who's told they don't deserve better learns that power always wins. Every single person who walked past you on that bench gets proven right. Aaliyah's voice cracked. Is that the legacy you want? Eleanor's composure finally shattered. Tears spilled down her weathered cheeks. I don't want you destroyed because of me. I don't want your brother taken from you. I don't want your mother's memory dragged through the press. I just wanted to reward kindness, and instead I've ruined your life. You haven't ruined anything. Aaliyah moved around the desk, kneeling beside Eleanor's chair. Those people who attacked my mother's memory? They're the same people who would have ignored her if she'd collapsed in front of them. Graham, Vincent, all of them, they prove exactly why someone like me needs to control this fortune. Because people like them only see dollar signs. You're 17 years old. And you were lost and confused and everyone ignored you. But I didn't. That has to count for something. Eleanor's trembling hands found Aaliyah's face. It counts for everything. That's the problem. You've shown me what I've been missing all these years, what Thomas and I tried to build before the money corrupted it. And now I'm watching them tear you apart for it. Then help me fight back. How? We don't have proof. We don't have time. We have the truth. And we have 48 hours to make it louder than their lies. Harrison cleared his throat. There might be one way. Risky. Possibly career-ending for all of us if it fails. I'm listening. Graham's whole strategy relies on you being passive. On you eventually breaking under pressure and walking away. He's betting you'll act like every other target he's destroyed, retreat, hide, disappear. Harrison's expression shifted into something calculating. What if we did the opposite? Meaning we go public. Completely public. You tell your story, all of it. The struggling, the sacrifice, the night you helped Eleanor. But also the juvenile record, the social services investigation, your mother's death. Everything Graham's weaponizing against you, you own it first. Control the narrative before he can shape it. Catherine leaned forward. A televised interview. Prime time. Full transparency. Show them who you really are before Graham can tell them who he wants them to think you are. That's insane, Eleanor protested. She'll be eviscerated. She's being eviscerated now. At least this way she's in control of the message. Harrison turned to Aaliyah. But I need you to understand this will be brutal. They'll ask about everything. Your mother, your poverty, your criminal record, Jamal. Every painful thing you've ever lived through will be dissected on national television. Can you handle that? Aaliyah thought about her mother, working 3 jobs and dying with nothing. About Jamal's inhaler and the times they'd rationed his medication because they couldn't afford refills. About every person who'd ever looked through her like she didn't exist. About Eleanor crying on that bench, invisible in a crowd. Set it up. The interview was scheduled for Wednesday evening. 24 hours before the board meeting. 24 hours to convince the country that she deserved what Eleanor had given her. 24 hours to fight back against a man with millions of pounds and nothing left to lose. As Aaliyah stood in the doorway watching Eleanor sleep that night, the old woman finally resting after days of stress, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Walk away now and I'll make this painless. Force my hand and I'll destroy everything you love. You have until tomorrow night. Gee. Aaliyah deleted the message without responding. Graham Hartwell wanted a war? He was about to get one. Wednesday morning arrived with fresh headlines. Teen heiress to face nation. BBC announces exclusive interview. Graham Hartwell speaks out. I'm fighting for my family's legacy. Child Services confirms investigation into Jamal Johnson's welfare. That last one made Aaliyah's hands shake so badly she dropped her phone. They can't actually take him, Catherine said, though her voice lacked conviction. The investigation is preliminary. Standard procedure when concerns are raised about a minor. Don't. Aaliyah's voice was ice. Don't tell me it's procedure when we both know Graham orchestrated this. Where's Jamal now? Upstairs with Patricia. He doesn't know about the investigation yet. Good. Keep it that way. Aaliyah stood at the window of Eleanor's study, watching security patrol the grounds. 3 news vans camped at the end of the street, telephoto lenses trained on the house. When's the interview? 7 p.m. BBC One Studios. They're promoting it as the event of the week. Catherine hesitated. Aaliyah, you need to prepare yourself. The interviewer is Marcus Reeves. The one who made that politician cry on air last month? He's relentless. Fair, but relentless. He won't soften questions just because you're 17. Good. If I'm going to do this, I want someone who'll make it count. Harrison entered carrying a briefcase that looked too heavy. We have a bigger problem. Graham's giving his own interview. This morning. ITV. He's beating us to the narrative. What? Eleanor appeared behind him, looking like she'd slept in her clothes. He can't, we didn't announce until last night. He has sources everywhere. Probably someone at the BBC leaked it. Harrison opened his briefcase, pulling out a tablet. It airs in 20 minutes. We should watch. They gathered in the sitting room like witnesses to an execution. Graham Hartwell appeared on screen in a perfectly tailored suit, sitting in what looked like a library designed to convey wisdom and respectability. The interviewer, a sympathetic woman in her 50s, smiled warmly as she introduced him. Mr. Hartwell, thank you for speaking with us during what must be an incredibly difficult time. Thank you for having me, Claire. I wish it were under different circumstances. Graham's expression was pained perfection. My family is in crisis, and someone needs to speak the truth before more damage is done. You're referring to your cousin Eleanor's decision to leave her fortune to Aaliyah Johnson? I'm referring to what I believe is a vulnerable elderly woman being manipulated by someone who saw an opportunity and exploited it. Graham leaned forward, earnest and concerned. My cousin Eleanor is one of the most brilliant people I've ever known. She built an empire, managed billions, touched countless lives through her charity work. But she's also 83 years old and struggling with cognitive decline. Her doctors have certified her as mentally competent. Her doctors saw her on good days. They didn't see her 3 weeks ago when she called me at 2 a.m., convinced my Uncle Thomas, who died 8 years ago, was still alive. They didn't see her last month when she got lost going to the grocery store 3 blocks from her house. Graham's voice cracked with apparent emotion. I love my cousin. Watching her deteriorate has been devastating. And watching someone take advantage of that deterioration is unbearable. Aaliyah's nails dug into her palms. You believe Miss Johnson deliberately targeted Mrs. Hartwell? I believe a 17-year-old girl with a criminal record and a history of financial desperation saw an opportunity when she found a confused elderly woman wandering alone. Graham pulled out a handkerchief, dabbing his eyes. Think about it, Claire. What are the odds? This girl just happens to find one of Britain's wealthiest women, just happens to help her home, and just happens to receive a £4 billion inheritance 3 days later. Mrs. Hartwell maintains that Miss Johnson didn't know who she was. Eleanor believes that because she wants to believe it. Because the alternative, that she was targeted, manipulated, exploited during a moment of vulnerability, is too painful to accept. Graham's expression hardened. but I've looked into Miss Johnson's background. Her mother died in suspicious circumstances. She has a sealed juvenile record involving theft. There are questions about her fitness to care for her younger brother. This is not someone who should suddenly control one of Britain's largest fortunes. What do you hope to achieve by speaking out? I want the courts to intervene before it's too late. I want Eleanor protected from someone who's clearly taking advantage of her. And I want the public to understand what's really happening here. This isn't a heartwarming story about kindness being rewarded. This is elder abuse, pure and simple. The screen cut to commercial. Eleanor stood and walked out of the room without a word. Aaliyah found her in the garden where the roses used to grow. The old woman stood among the bare flower beds, staring at nothing, tears streaming silently down her face. "He's very convincing," Eleanor said without turning around. "If I didn't know better, I'd almost believe him myself." "Eleanor, the worst part is that some of it's true. I did call him about Thomas. I was having a dream, half awake, confused. He's twisting it, but the kernel is real." Eleanor's shoulders shook. "And I did get lost going to the store. Not last month, 6 months ago, when I had that inner ear infection that affected my balance. But he's right that it happened. That doesn't make you incompetent. It makes me vulnerable. And vulnerability is all he needs." Eleanor turned, her face ravaged by tears and something worse, doubt. "What if he's right, Aaliyah? What if I am being foolish? What if my judgment is compromised and I'm making a terrible mistake?" "Do you really believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore. Everyone is telling me I'm wrong, my attorneys, my family, the press, half the country. How can I trust my own mind when everyone else says it's failing?" Aaliyah crossed the dead garden and took Eleanor's hands. "The night we met, what did you ask me?" "I don't remember. You asked if I believed in fate. And I said we make our own fate through the choices we make." Aaliyah's grip tightened. "You made a choice that night. Not because you were confused or vulnerable, but because you saw something that mattered. Do you remember what you told me at the press conference?" Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. "That you demonstrated the ability to see human beings instead of transactions. Do you still believe that?" "Yes. But then trust the choice you made when you were seeing clearly. Don't let Graham gaslight you into doubting your own judgment." Eleanor's laugh was broken. "Gaslight. Thomas used to say that about my sister's husband. He'd twist every conversation until she questioned her own memories." She looked at Aaliyah with sudden clarity. "Graham is doing the same thing, isn't he? Taking real moments and warping them into a narrative of incompetence." "Yes." "Then we fight back." Eleanor's spine straightened. "That interview tonight, you're going to tell the truth. All of it. And I'm going to sit right beside you while you do it." The preparation for the interview was brutal. Harrison and Catherine spent hours running Aaliyah through potential questions, probing every painful corner of her history. They didn't soften anything. Couldn't afford to. "Your mother's death," Harrison said flatly. "They'll ask if you benefited financially. I went into debt to pay for her cremation. They'll imply you're lying. What's your response?" "The truth. I have receipts, payment plans, collection notices. I can prove every pound." "The shoplifting arrest at 15? Aaliyah's joy tightened. "I took bread and peanut butter from a Tesco Express because Jamal had asthma medication that cost £60, and we could only afford one or the other that week. I chose medicine. The judge dismissed the charges after reviewing our financial situation. Graham will say it shows a pattern of criminal behavior. Then Graham can explain which choice he would have made, feed a child or buy asthma medication. I'd love to hear his answer." Catherine looked up from her notes. "They'll go after your mother's work history. 3 jobs, multiple employers, financial instability. My mother worked herself to death trying to provide for us. She cleaned hospitals at 5 a.m., served lunch at a school cafeteria, and stocked shelves at night. She died of a heart attack at 42 because she couldn't afford to take a sick day." Aaliyah's voice didn't waver. If anyone wants to criticize how hard she worked, they can do it while looking at her grave. The social services investigation? A teacher saw bruises on my arms and did her job by reporting it. The bruises came from catching Jamal when he fell off playground equipment. Social services investigated, found no evidence of abuse, and closed the case within a week. The system worked exactly as it should. What about the claim that you're unfit to care for Jamal? That one landed harder. Aaliyah took a breath. My brother is healthy, fed, clothed, medicated, and loved. He's never missed a doctor's appointment. His school attendance is perfect. His grades are excellent. If someone wants to take him from me, they'll have to explain which part of his care is inadequate. Harrison nodded approval. Good. Hold that energy. Now, the big one. Why should you, a 17-year-old with no business experience, control a £4 billion empire? I shouldn't. Not alone. Aaliyah met his eyes. But I should have the opportunity to learn, to grow into it, to use it the way Eleanor intended, to help people who get ignored. I don't claim to have all the answers. I claim to give a damn about the questions. They'll say you're too young. Graham is 36 and £60 million in debt. Age clearly doesn't guarantee wisdom. Catherine actually smiled. Use that line tonight. At 4 p.m., everything fell apart. Harrison's phone rang. His expression went from focused to horrified in seconds. When? How long ago? Pause. Don't let anyone in or out. We're on our way. He hung up and turned to Aaliyah. It's Jamal. He's gone. The world stopped. What do you mean gone? Security did a routine check 15 minutes ago. His room was empty. Window open. Patricia thought he was in the library. Aaliyah was already running. The guest room looked exactly as it had that morning. Bed made. Books stacked neatly. The window opened to the cold afternoon air, curtains billowing inward. On the pillow, a note in Jamal's handwriting. Laya, I heard them talking. About the investigation, about taking me away. I won't let you lose everything because of me. I'm going somewhere safe. Don't look for me. I love you. Jay. No. Aaliyah's legs gave out. No, no, no. Catherine was already on her phone. Alert all security. Check the grounds, the street nearby. He's 12 years old. Aaliyah's voice cracked. He doesn't know the neighborhood. He doesn't have money. He has asthma, his inhaler. Patricia appeared in the doorway, face white. His medication is still in the bathroom. He left without it. The medication Jamal needed every 6 hours or he risked an attack. Aaliyah grabbed her phone, dialing Jamal's number. It went straight to voicemail. We need to call the police, Eleanor said. No. The word came out sharper than Aaliyah intended. If we report him missing, if this goes public, Graham will use it as proof I'm an unfit guardian. He'll say I was so distracted by money and fame that I lost track of my own brother. We can't not report it. We have hours before the interview. Let me find him first. Please. Harrison's expression was grim. Where would a 12-year-old boy go in a city he doesn't know? Aaliyah closed her eyes, thinking. Jamal was smart, careful, resourceful. Where would he go to feel safe? Then it hit her. The apartment. He went back to our apartment. You're sure? He said he's going somewhere safe. That's the only place that would feel safe to him. Aaliyah was already moving toward the door. It's 40 minutes by bus. If he left an hour ago. I'll drive you, Eleanor said. Harrison, Catherine, keep this quiet. If anyone asks, Jamal is resting upstairs and we're running errands. Eleanor, you shouldn't. That child left because he's trying to protect Aaliyah from losing everything. The least I can do is help find him. Eleanor's voice held steel. Get the car. The drive to Aaliyah's old neighborhood felt like traveling backward through time. The pristine streets of Ashford Lane gave way to cracked pavement and boarded-up shops. The Mercedes stood out like a diamond in a coal mine. People stared as it passed. Turn here, Aaliyah directed. Third building on the left. The apartment building looked even more run down than she remembered. 1 week away, and it already felt like a lifetime ago. Eleanor parked illegally and followed Aaliyah inside without hesitation. The lift was broken, it was always broken, so they climbed 4 flights of stairs, Eleanor moving slowly but determinedly. Aaliyah's hands shook as she unlocked the apartment door. Jamal. Silence. The apartment was exactly as they'd left it. Dishes in the sink. Aaliyah's mattress on the floor. The water stain on the ceiling. But no Jamal. He's not here. Panic rose in Aaliyah's throat. He should be here. Where else would he? Aaliyah. Eleanor stood by the window, looking down at the street. Is that him? Aaliyah rushed over. For stories down, Jamal sat on the front steps of the building, arms wrapped around his knees, shoulders shaking. Aaliyah ran. She burst out of the building and grabbed her brother, pulling him into her arms so tightly he gasped. You idiot. You absolute idiot. Do you have any idea? I'm sorry. Jamal was crying. I heard them talking about taking me away, about the investigation, and I thought if I disappeared, if they couldn't use me against you. There is no amount of money in the world worth losing you. Do you understand me? Nothing matters more than you. But the inheritance, the company, everything Miss Eleanor gave you, means nothing without you safe. Aaliyah pulled back, gripping his shoulders. Where's your inhaler? I forgot. You forgot. Aaliyah's voice rose. Jamal, you know better. I know. I wasn't thinking, I just wanted to help. Eleanor appeared beside them, slightly winded from the stairs. She knelt down to Jamal's level with effort. Young man, do you know why I gave your sister all that money? Jamal shook his head, still crying. Because when everyone else walked past me, she stopped. She sacrificed her own welfare to help someone she didn't know. Do you understand what that taught me? That Lia's nice? That your sister knows what matters. And what matters isn't money or companies or inheritances. It's people. It's family. It's protecting the ones we love. Eleanor's eyes were wet. Running away to protect her proves you're exactly like her. Which means both of you are worth more than all my billions combined. Jamal threw his arms around Eleanor, and the old woman held him, and Aaliyah wrapped around both of them, and they stayed like that on the steps of a rundown building in the worst part of Bristol while the Mercedes gleamed at the curb and somewhere across the city. Graham Hartwell prepared to destroy them all. We need to get you back, Aaliyah finally said. The interview. I'm not doing the interview. The decision crystallized as she spoke. I'm not leaving Jamal for a second. Graham can have it all. Eleanor's grip tightened. Absolutely not. Miss Eleanor, do you remember what you told me in the garden? That I should trust the choice I made when I was seeing clearly. Eleanor stood, helping Jamal to his feet. I'm seeing clearly now. We go to that interview. All 3 of us. And we show them exactly what family looks like. They'll crucify us. Let them try. Eleanor's smile was fierce. I'm tired of being afraid. Aren't you? Aaliyah looked at Jamal, at his tear-streaked face and his missing inhaler and his too big heart that had almost gotten him killed trying to protect her. Then she looked at Eleanor, 83 and trembling and absolutely unbreakable when it counted. Yeah, Aaliyah said. I'm tired of being afraid. They had 2 hours until the interview. 2 hours to clean up, prepare, and face the nation. 2 hours before Graham Hartwell learned what it meant to go to war with people who had nothing left to lose. The BBC studios felt like a gladiatorial arena. Aaliyah sat in the makeup chair, watching the artist try to cover the exhaustion etched into her 17-year-old face. Behind her in the mirror, Eleanor stood speaking quietly with Harrison while Catherine paced outside, phone pressed to her ear. Jamal sat in the green room with Patricia, his inhaler, retrieved from Ashford Lane by security, clutched in his hand like a talisman. 5 minutes, a production assistant called. Aaliyah's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Last chance. Walk away now and I'll drop everything. The investigation, the board challenge, all of it. You can disappear with your brother and 50 million pounds. Enough to live comfortably forever. All you have to do is not go on that stage. Her thumb hovered over the screen. 50 million pounds. She could take Jamal anywhere. Disappear to another country, another life. He'd have the best doctors, the best schools, every opportunity she'd never had. No more struggling, no more fear. All she had to do was let Graham win. Aaliyah? Eleanor appeared beside her. What is it? Aaliyah showed her the message. Eleanor read it, her expression unreadable. 50 million is generous. You could build a good life with that. You think I should take it? I think you should know you have a choice. Eleanor sat in the chair beside her. I'm 83 years old, dear. I've had my life, made my impact. But you're 17. Jamal is 12. You have decades ahead of you. If taking that offer means you both survive this intact, maybe that's the wise choice. But the foundation, the mission you wanted, will still exist. Graham might be a disaster as a human being, but he's not stupid enough to completely dismantle what Thomas and I built. The hospitals will stay open. The schools will keep running. It won't be what I hoped, but it'll survive. Aaliyah stared at her reflection. The girl looking back barely recognized herself anymore. 7 days ago, she'd been nobody. Invisible. Now she sat in a BBC studio about to face the entire country. What do you want me to do? She asked quietly. I want you to choose yourself for once. Eleanor's hand found hers. You've spent your whole life sacrificing for others. Your mother, Jamal, me. When do you get to just be 17? When do you get to be selfish? Selfish would be taking the money. Selfish would be choosing safety over suffering. That's not wrong, Aaliyah. That's survival. Catherine burst in. We have a problem. Graham just arrived. He's demanding airtime for rebuttal immediately following your interview. Can they do that? BBC's considering it. Equal time provision. They gave him morning airtime. Now you get evening. Seems fair to let him respond. Catherine's expression was grim. Which means anything you say, he'll counter within minutes. He'll have the last word. Unless we don't give him anything to counter. Aaliyah stood, decision crystallizing. What if I don't do the interview? Eleanor's head snapped up. Aaliyah, think about it. If I walk away now, what can Graham say? He looks like he's attacking someone who's already surrendered. The public sympathy shifts. The public will think you ran because you're guilty, Harrison said from the doorway. Or they'll think I'm a 17-year-old kid who got overwhelmed and made the smart choice to step back. Either way, it's over. Jamal stays with me. We take whatever settlement Graham offers and disappear. And I spend my final years knowing my legacy went to a man who manipulates children and exploits the elderly. Eleanor's voice was soft but cutting. Is that what you want? I want Jamal safe. He is safe. We have the best security money can buy. Graham can't actually take him. The investigation is preliminary. We can fight it. But for how long? Aaliyah's voice cracked. How many months of lawyers and court dates and strangers evaluating whether I'm fit to raise my own brother? How much of his childhood gets consumed by this fight? The production assistant reappeared. 2 minutes. Miss Johnson, we need you in position. Aaliyah's phone buzzed again. Tick-tock. 60 seconds to decide. Take the deal or face the consequences. Choose wisely. Miss Johnson? We're on a schedule. I need a minute. The assistant fled. Aaliyah looked at Eleanor, at this woman who'd trusted her with everything. At Catherine and Harrison, who'd worked around the clock to protect her. At the door to the green room where Jamal waited. At her phone, where 50 million pounds and a quiet life beckoned. What would your mother do? Eleanor asked quietly. The question landed like a physical blow. Aaliyah's mother, who'd worked 3 jobs and died with nothing. Who'd sacrificed everything for her children and never asked for recognition or reward. Who'd taught Aaliyah that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. What would she do? She'd tell me to fight, Aaliyah whispered. even if it cost her everything. She'd tell me that some things are worth the sacrifice. Is this one of those things? Aaliyah thought about the people who'd walked past Eleanor, about Graham's debts and Vincent's manipulation, and every person who'd ever looked through her like she didn't exist. About what it would mean if people like that always won. Yeah, she said. This is one of those things. She deleted Graham's message without responding. The studio was smaller than Aaliyah expected. Marcus Reeves sat across from her, eyes sharp and assessing. The cameras formed a semicircle, their red lights like predator eyes in the darkness. An audience of 200 filled the seats behind them, carefully selected for demographic balance, Catherine had explained. Eleanor sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap, spine straight. Jamal sat beside her, looking terrified but determined. 30 seconds, the floor director announced. Marcus leaned forward. I won't go easy on you. You understand that? I wouldn't want you to. Good. His expression softened fractionally. For what it's worth, I think you're either very brave or very foolish to do this. Can't I be both? He almost smiled. We'll find out. The floor director counted down. 5, 4, 3. The last 2 seconds passed in silence, his fingers marking the countdown. A red light blazed to life. Good evening. I'm Marcus Reeves, and tonight we're joined by Aaliyah Johnson, the 17-year-old at the center of what's being called the most controversial inheritance in British history. Marcus's voice was calm, professional, devastating. Miss Johnson, 1 week ago, you were a food delivery driver living in poverty. Today, you're potentially the heir to a £4 billion fortune. Some call it a fairy tale. Others call it fraud. What do you call it? Aaliyah took a breath. I call it complicated. Let's start with the night you met Eleanor Hartwell. Walk me through what happened. I was making deliveries. Running late. I had 3 more drop-offs to make when I saw an elderly woman crying on a bench in the rain. She was soaked through, confused, asking for help. Did you know who she was? No. I found out later when I got her home. At the time, she was just someone who needed help. Yet you stopped. Why? You were late, losing money. Why did you stop for a stranger? The question was gentler than Aaliyah expected. Because she was crying. Because everyone else was walking past her like she was invisible. Because... She paused. Because my mother taught me that people matter more than money. Even when money is what you desperately need. Your mother worked multiple jobs and died young. Some might say that's exactly why you should have kept going, why you couldn't afford to stop for someone else. My mother died because she worked herself to death trying to provide for us. But she never regretted it. She never regretted choosing people over profit. I stopped for Miss Eleanor because that's what my mother would have done. Marcus's expression didn't change. Let's talk about what happened after. 3 days after helping Mrs. Hartwell, you were named her primary heir. Critics say that timeline is suspiciously fast, that it suggests premeditation on your part. Critics can believe what they want. The truth is I had no idea Miss Eleanor was even considering something like that. I gave her my phone number in case she needed help. That's all. But you accepted the inheritance. After her lawyer showed up at my door and explained that refusing would mean it went to people who hadn't spoken to her in years. People who only remembered she existed when they needed money. People like Graham Hartwell? Aaliyah met Marcus's eyes. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Mr. Hartwell appeared on television this morning calling you a manipulator, a criminal, someone taking advantage of an elderly woman's confusion. How do you respond to that? This was it. The moment everything pivoted. Aaliyah could feel Eleanor's eyes on her. Jamal's. The cameras. The nation. I respond by telling the truth, she said quietly. All of it. Marcus leaned forward. I'm listening. When I was 15, I was arrested for shoplifting from a Tesco Express. I took bread and peanut butter because my brother needed asthma medication that cost £60, and we had to choose between food or medicine that week. I chose medicine. The judge dismissed the charges after reviewing our situation, but the arrest still happened. Graham Hartwell is right about that. Silence in the studio. My mother died when I was 15. She had a heart attack at work at one of her 3 jobs. She couldn't afford to take sick days, couldn't afford proper health care, couldn't afford to slow down. She died with almost nothing in her bank account, and I went into debt to pay for her cremation. Graham Hartwell is also right that there were questions about her death. The questions were asked by me because I wanted to understand how someone could work that hard and still have nothing. Aaliyah's voice steadied. 2 years ago, a social services investigation was opened when a teacher saw bruises on my arms. The bruises came from catching my brother when he fell on a playground. The investigation closed within a week with no findings of abuse. But it happened. That's also true. So Graham Hartwell's accusations are accurate? Marcus asked. Graham Hartwell's facts are accurate. His narrative is a lie. Aaliyah leaned forward. He takes real moments, real struggles that millions of families face, and twists them into evidence of criminal behavior. He says I have a history of profiting from vulnerable people. I have a history of surviving poverty while trying to protect my brother. Those aren't the same thing. What about his claim that you targeted Mrs. Hartwell? That you researched her routine and positioned yourself to find her? How would I have known she'd have a medical episode that specific night? How would I have known she'd end up on that specific bench? I was making deliveries from a restaurant 3 blocks away. The only way I could have planned it is if I can predict the future and control when elderly people get confused. Can I do that, Mr. Reeves? Can you? No. I'm just a 17-year-old who stopped to help someone who was crying. Marcus glanced at his notes. Let's talk about the board meeting tomorrow. Hartwell Industries will vote on whether to accept you as majority shareholder or restructure to dilute your control. What happens if they vote against you? Then they vote against me. I'll have lost something I never expected to have in the first place. You'd walk away from £4 billion? I'd walk away from £4 billion if keeping it meant losing my brother. Or compromising who I am. Or proving Graham Hartwell right. Aaliyah's voice strengthened. But here's what I won't walk away from: the idea that kindness should be rewarded. That helping someone shouldn't be treated as a crime. That people like my mother, who work themselves to death trying to survive, deserve better than a system that grinds them up and throws them away. Noble words. But you're 17 years old with no business experience. Why should you control one of Britain's largest companies? I shouldn't. Not alone. But I should have the chance to learn. To grow into it. To use it the way Miss Eleanor intended, to help people who get ignored by everyone else. And if the board votes tomorrow to take that chance away from me, they'll be proving exactly why someone like me needs to be in that room. Because people like Graham Hartwell only see $signs. I see my mother. I see every person who's ever been invisible. Aaliyah turned to look directly at the camera. I see Eleanor Hartwell crying on a bench while hundreds of people walk past. And I refuse to become someone who walks past. The studio erupted in applause. Marcus waited for silence. We need to take a brief break. When we return, Eleanor Hartwell joins us to respond to today's accusations. And later, Graham Hartwell's rebuttal. The red light died. Eleanor was already crossing the studio floor, and when she reached Aaliyah, she pulled her into a fierce hug. Your mother would be so proud, she whispered. Aaliyah held on tight and let herself believe it.